often think about frequencies in dowsing as something, well, really less important, because we are looking for the results. But how can we understand and expect good results without understanding the foundations? Let's look today at frequencies and wavelengths. Wavelength is something what characterizes each of us. We all operate on specific wavelength. This wavelength is only factor which allows us to be recognized in the vastness of the universe by other people. It is a wavelength which psychics look really for when they want to see your past or your future. It is a wavelength of specific person which I look after and for in order to travel for my clients back in the past to let them understand their life predicaments, and actually which we both together in a session look to create better future for this person. And there is a frequency which is specific for you and for me. This is a frequency which means the frequency, how frequently something occurs in a specific period of time. Today's lecture is about looking into both and see their differences and their similarities, because those two factors are predominantly important when we want to travel through the time back and forth, and when we dowse. On the subtle level, energetic level, of course, everything is characterized by wavelength and frequency. And therefore, every object, every person, every idea, thought, and so on, which you will dowse for, will have those two characteristics. Now, how to find them, how to identify them, how to distinguish between the wavelength of specific objects and the frequencies on which they operate, that is a topic of this lecture. I'm Alicja Aratyn, and I would like you to spend with me some time to explore the fascinating world of subtle energies. The universe, in order to cooperate, asks you always, show me your vibration, and I will show you miracles. But on the other hand, if we look at it from strictly scientific point of view, then following the Stephen Hawking's, we can say there is no magic on the world, only fields of physics which we do not know yet. Children, because they don't know the physics and the rules of life on this planet, for them everything is magical. World is magical. Christmas is magical. For us, as we grow and know more, less and less is magical. That's why the holy books will ask you to become a child again. So let's look how it goes in our real adult life. We know that energy is like electricity. It flows, giving us sensations, but it is invisible and intangible itself. Because you don't see the electricity flowing through the wires in your walls, but you take for granted that when you will kind of push the switch, the light will be there because it simply flows. Having said that, we can also say then that dowsing is an art and science of natural, very natural to all humans, ability to tune in to any possible vibration in the universe. There is no limit of time or anything else, or space, for example. The ability to connect and then to create as a result of this connection. And as you can read my words here, we can also say then, based on this, that dowsing is an art and science of connection between us as humans, between the universe, extraterrestrials, whatever you want, the natural resources in the ground, and so on. As I said, there is no limit. What is the deciding factor if we will or will not connect is a wavelength. And according to definition, the wavelength is the distance between successive crests of a wave, especially point in a sound wave or electromagnetic wave, and defined by Thomas Young at the beginning of 19th century. I will draw it here so we can easily see and kind of redefine it for us, right? So if those are axes, then the wavelength, which is like this, we'll extend this a little. It's a distance between the points, the highest points on the wave. In science, it is marked by a letter lambda. Well, it's North American definition, and it's a little bit hard for our purposes to deal with. So therefore, I would like to use the European description of it. Again, not because it's better, but because it is easier to see. And the wavelength is defined as a spot on the wave which crosses the axis. So that will be, this distance will be the same lambda, just easier for us to see where it begins and where it ends. And of course, here there will be another lambda, another wave. The one part of it we call a range. So sometimes in dowsing we say go on second range. Let's now see why it is important for us in our dowsing life to understand wavelength. If I will draw the axis again, and then the horizontal axis is a distance, then if I will draw my wavelength, let's say, then it will go like this. And this is person A. But if I will draw the wavelength of person B, it will be, let's say, like this. That is my lambda, which means length of my wave. And this is his lambda. So let's call it lambda 1. And it is the wavelength of another person. You can see that my wavelength is not equal to his wavelength. Therefore, it shows us that we cannot hold the pendulum whenever on the string or chain and expect to talk to ourselves. Let's now turn the axis. So here is a distance. So distance will be marked here. And here will be my pendulum. Well, let's call it ISIS, right? Now, my wavelength was like this, which means it's here. That's why we ask you, we in our flyers, move your fingers along the string until it will start to respond to you. And it will start to respond to you only when you are on your wavelength. What does that mean is that when I have a pendulum and I hold it as close to the pendulum as possible, then I will move my fingers, which means walk the string, holding it like this, and moving my fingers along the string until I will get consistent, steady movement. It does not have to be big, but it has to be consistent. Not hectic, because whatever you will do, the pendulum will move a little bit, but that movement will die down. But when you will reach your wavelength, it will move like this. And that's the movement which you cannot create with the movement of your fingers, because it's very focused, even movement. And it can be clockwise or counterclockwise or up and down or side to side. It doesn't matter how it moves for you, but it will become moving, which means it responds to your request, which is show me my wavelength. Show me my wavelength. Show me my wavelength. And only at certain length, on certain distance, it will start to respond, which means that me inside hears me outside, and we can communicate. That's this art and science of communication. Now, when you have your wavelength, you can communicate with everything. You can solve any problem about you. But what if I want to work on my friend? Well, then do you think I need to work with my wavelength? No, if I want to know about her, then I need to find her wavelength, because I want to communicate with her energetic system, not mine. Remember, if you work with someone else or for someone else, it is this person's wavelength, not yours. Wavelength is normally measured in nanometers, which is very, very small invisible distance. It's 10 to minus 9 to the power of minus 9. So it's really, really small. How then we can have a wavelength like this? It's because this distance, which you see here, is a three-dimensional expression of this nano distance. So your physical eyes can see. As long as you will find a wavelength and it exists, it has a specific length, then you have to go on this wavelength. If it's too short for you because you are used to working with longer, then hold here. Actually, on our pendulums, you have those sliders which you can move to mark your wavelength, and you can simply hold by this slider and multiply your wavelength, which means goes twice as far and check if that gives you the movement you like. There is many purposes which we don't have right now time to discuss why you would use the second range or third range of your wavelength or fourth, basically further ranges of your wavelength. But just remember, if you don't see the precise movement of your pendulum from the first range, then multiply it to see bigger, more vigorous movement. Your wavelength will get shorter with time. It's not because this wavelength in nanometer will change, because the wavelength is the most characteristic in universe information about you that defines you in the universe. So only when you will come to the distance of 0, you can hold pendulum whenever, just because every distance multiplied by 0, it will come to 0. Yes, it's simple mathematics. So therefore, you can hold it whenever. If you will come closer to the body of the pendulum from this distance to that distance, it does not mean that your wavelength changed. It only means that your muscles are less tense because you are more used to your dowsing practice, and therefore the energy flows more freely through your muscles, and therefore you are able to move the pendulum from shorter distance. Let's now go back to our presentation and see more about wavelength and frequencies. When we know what wavelength is from practical and scientific point of view, now we can go further into the problem of frequency. What does that mean? The frequency is the rate at which something occurs or is repeated over a particular period of time. I think most of you know who developed this concept, because it was a German physicist called by the name of Heinrich Hertz. Heinrich Hertz was working on it in the second part of 19th century, and it brought us this understanding that if you have one wave per 1 second, which means today 1 hertz. In North America, we have a frequency of 60 hertz in our light bulbs or our electrical system. 60 hertz, which means over 1 minute, 1 second, there is a 60 cycles. When you go to Europe, there is a 50 hertz, which means over 1 second, the wave alternates 50 times, which means that the wave is less penetrating in Europe than here. Let's see why. If we will have again the axis, and here is a wavelength. And let's say that this is 1 second. So 1 hertz. Here is another 1 hertz. But if we would like to squeeze it and have a higher frequency, which means the wavelength will occur more often in specific time frame, and we will have another axis here, and that will be still 1 second, so it's equal to this, but we would like to have 2 hertz, then we would have to have 2 waves over this 1 second. In order to squeeze them, which means shorten their wavelength, we would have to increase the size because it has to be managed in two. So the wave is higher, but it's shorter and appears more frequently, which means two of them per 1 second. And we have here 2 hertz. From here to here is 2 hertz. Why is it? Because you have to push the same energetic value in shorter space. So if you would like to have a 50 or 60 hertz, then you would have to have those blue lines squeezed even more. So they will be 60 or 50 of them over the same period of time, 1 hertz. That's why we say that people operate on higher or lower frequency, which means on heavier waves or on higher waves. All right? Lower the frequency, longer the wave, or the opposite way, shorter the wave, higher the frequency, because there is more room in the same time unit to repeat the wave constantly over this specific period of time. Let's look now how it looks in comparison to our brain, because it's important, since it will really define how we operate, how aware we are, right? So before 2 years, a child operates mostly on delta, which is from 0,1 to 3 hertz. This young child is detached. There is a lot of awareness, healing, and sleep. And then between 2 and 6, we go into theta, which means meditation, intuition, memory. That's why children absorb everything like a sponge. Between 6 and 12, we go into alpha, and there is, which means relaxation, visualization, creativity, still learning very fast, still being very creative. And then when we pass 12, unfortunately, we go into beta of alertness, concentration, and cognition. Here, the neocortex kicks in very, very fast. And then some of us, even though we are adults, can get constantly or from time to time to gamma level, which is 31 to 100 hertz. And it means insight, and it means peak focus and expanded consciousness. So we can say that those are avatars, ascended masters, extremely advanced, spiritually advanced teachers. Is it unobtainable by the rest of us? No, but it takes a lot of effort and work on yourself, on your spiritual development. Let's look at us based on this information and showing our spiritual development. What does that really mean for us? So let's now create an axis, but this time we will do 3 axes to compare the frequencies of 3 people. Let's say this person will be called A, this person will be called B, and this person will be called C. The person A have long wavelength
So therefore it goes like this. As we said, for a moment, we will agree that this horizontal axis will be not only time, but also the contact with the consciousness of the universe. So the person A will have this aha, insightful moment here because it crosses the axis, and here, so it will have two contacts per specific period of time. And let's say that that's our measuring distance, okay? Now, the person B, which has this wave, will have 1, 2, 3, 4, which will have 4 contacts. What does that mean? It means that this person contacts the universe, have this very close connection with the universe 4 times, which means 2 times more than the person number A, or code A. Now let's go to the person C, which will have kind of like this wavelength, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and 9, 10, 11, 12, and so on. So as we can see, it's almost constant contact with the awareness of the universe. That proves to us that shorter our wavelength, higher frequency, and therefore we can be in touch with the universe more often. You see, people who spiritually develop themselves, who meditate or contemplate, people who train themselves spiritually, which do certain rites and so on, whichever way you will decide is the best for you to develop yourself spiritually. By using a pendulum, for example, and enriching your energy field with the energy of white light or energy of golden light, and so on. More you do this, higher your frequency. That's the true reason for spiritual development, to be in higher and more constant contact with the frequency of the universe, with the energy of the universe, with the awareness of the universe and conscious of the universe. That's when we say that we are more and more enlightened. And it is not for chosen one. It is for each of us. But the thing is, we need to understand this, because if not, then you will hear, but you will not understand. Why are you hearing the voices or having those insights? Are you insane? Is it chemical imbalance of your brain? Or are you in this higher dimension, in this higher level of consciousness, which is more compatible with the consciousness of the universe? That's why you dowse, because dowsing provides us with necessary information regarding past, present, and future. And because that can happen, because dowser always operates in no time, no space reality of infinite now. And that's why we can say that there is no limit but your own belief system. There is no way that dowser cannot connect with whatever happened, whenever happened in the past. Either it was ancient Egypt or Sumerians or extraterrestrials or other stellar system. And there is also no reason why we shouldn't get and use our dowsing skill to create a future by developing there the proper amount of white or golden light to create magnificent future for ourselves and for our close ones, for our countries and for our planet. If someone will tell you that you cannot really go into the future and create something, then it's up to you if you will believe them or not. I do not believe in that, and I have proofs in my own life that it's not true and that you can create. If you will share my beliefs, then you will come almost almighty. Well, of course, there are some limitations, but we can live with those. And then your life with dowsing will be so much richer, and you will understand everything, or at least have a way to attempt to understand everything. The door is open. And let me wrap up with the quote from amazing man by the name of Bruce Lee, who said, "Do not speak negatively about yourself, even as a joke. Your body do not know the difference. Words are energy and cast spells. That's why it is called spelling. Change the way you speak about yourself, and you can change your life. What you are not changing, you are also choosing." Thank you very much for spending this time with me, and I would like to invite you to visit our website to find out dowsing tools of high standard and high frequency, like white light and gold light, and other useful spiritual development tools. We also invite you to our YouTube channel and Facebook page. We also offer online courses, which are listed on our website. And I run monthly group of scientific dowsers. If you would like to join us, contact me through contact us on homepage of our website. Thank you very, very much. I wish you fantastic rest of the conference and very, very successful dowsing life. To your benefit and success, thank you for your time, and be great.